For the last Sunday in June, you found the Georgia gang topping our agenda this Sunday. A sit-in on Capitol Hill over guns. Immigration is the topic from the Supreme Court. And in Cobb County, a fight leading to a primary runoff. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
And we're so glad you'll be with us on this hot Sunday. We're going to begin on Capitol Hill. Well, no, we're not. We're going to stop and just take a minute here before we go to Capitol Hill and talk about something that will be on all the rest of the programs this morning, and that's Brexit. I think we have to acknowledge that the people of Britain have voted to leave the European Union. And on Friday, the stock market was tanking, as it had been predicted. And we should note, because everybody else will, Phil, on the shows that follow us, that this is what Donald Trump's been talking about.
Well, I think if you're just going to do a political analysis of how it relates to America and us, all of us in our pocketbooks, I think it's a good thing. It's reestablishing a country's sovereignty. It's reestablishing a company's right to do trade deals, and good trade deals, hopefully. And Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are going to be talking about Brexit in the campaign, because I think it affects all of us, especially with regard to immigration and control of our borders. And I think that's what caused Britain to get out.
And, and you were just there, so I called on you because, welcome back.
Thank you.
But you were in Europe and probably had a closer eye on it.
I do think it's interesting, though, in reference to Trump, that he was visiting Scotland, which voted overwhelmingly to stay in.
That's true.
So it's an interesting position that everybody is in. And it only passed.
True.
It was a narrow defeat.
And Scotland may have another referendum on leaving Britain.
That's right. They voted to stay in the UK, and they may come out because a condition was that they stay in the EU. But the thing about it is that it shows to me the contagiousness of fear-based politics, right? It goes from Donald Trump and Washington Republicans all the way across the Atlantic to Britain, where they're concerned about immigration, especially immigration of color, because what we're talking about is 1 million people who have immigrated into Europe and can cross borders at will from the Middle East and Africa.
Are you talking about radical Islamists who want to hurt?
What color are Muslims? What color are Muslims?
Jeff, I think you're forgetting why people are fearful. Have you heard of?
I don't know what color Muslims are, but I know what color the people from Africa are, and I know that the people from the Middle East are not necessarily white.
We're talking border control.
And I know
he has to bring race into it as usual.
Because it is
Right.
race underlies everything.
No, it's a national sovereignty issue.
It's a national sovereignty issue, and who can come in? I don't think anybody has a problem, regardless of race, if you can come in and be assimilated.
It was all a matter of fear-based politics, and we see a lot of that right here in America, right? And now we're
because
exporting,
of maybe
we're exporting
shootings?
it.
Because of shootings?
No, it came from there. It's the European open borders that focus the attention on this problem of Muslim immigrants.
It's a part of the result of globalization, and that the EU facilitated
It's part of the fact that our foreign policy has fostered all of this turmoil in the Mideast that's causing a refugee influx.
The fact of the matter is the European Union is the largest economy in the world. This is going to have huge implications going forward.
Good.
We don't know what it's going to do to the city of London, which isn't going to be the financial center that it used to be. It's going to get a lot smaller, I think. And we just don't know what's going to happen.
It could be
Can I do
bigger.
I
one
don't
last
think it's going to be
word?
bigger.
Do you know what the
Because the
mission?
show's completely off the
I
rails.
know
don't
it. Do you know what
know.
the mission statement of the European Union is? It's to outstrip the United States of America economically. That was their mission.
Okay.
Wonderful.
You know what we've just done? We've never done this that I can remember. We're doing the Atlanta streetcar thing. We're completely off the rails. Now we've got to recover. We've got to recover. We've got to retime the whole broadcast. All right, so let's turn to what I was thinking of starting with, and that's Capitol Hill, where John Lewis, the old civil rights lion, led a sit-in on the floor of the U.S. House. It is a low point in representative democracy.
Please.
It was childish, immature, silly behavior by elected representatives. Why not?
Absolutely not, because he was being the conscience of the Congress that he is. The fact of the matter is that these gun murders, mass murders in particular, have gotten way out of hand. And the only thing that I would criticize them for is that they didn't go for reinstating this ban on assault weapons, because that's what's needed. These are people are being
You can't
killed
buy
all
assault
over the
weapons
state.
now, Alexis.
Well, they get them anyway. So,
Yes,
but
outlaws do get guns. That is true.
But it's part of the policy and the culture of this country.
Outlaws get guns. You can't buy assault weapons.
This country needs to have some brakes put on it's violence.
Jeff, what did
Yeah.
you think about a bunch of
Oh, my
congressmen
goodness, let me tell
sitting
you.
on the floor of the
Yes,
House
absolutely.
like kindergartners at recess, remembering the glory days of the civil rights
No,
movement?
Let me tell
they
you what.
were creating new days.
When the adults set irrational rules, the kindergartners should take over. You know, John. I think we should all be proud. Let me first say of John Lewis and the action that he took, because we wouldn't have had this attention and we wouldn't be having this
Absolutely.
conversation were it not for John Lewis. And he said, you know, we all got into trouble. He said it was good trouble.
Kenny,
And it was
outside-
necessary trouble.
How about-
And he's exactly right. It was good trouble and it was necessary trouble. And it's exactly the sort of thing that our nation needs. 85% of Americans believe that terrorists shouldn't be able to buy a gun.
All right.
Except for the Republicans who are owned by the NRA. They're the only ones who think that terrorists should be able to.
All right, you done?
Right?
Here's the problem. Why not take it outside to the street and do a demonstration rather than shut down the government, have it, as you point out, a circus on the floor where you couldn't get any business done? I don't mind if
You
John
take it
Lewis
outside
takes
on the
it outside.
you take it outside on the street, and we're not having this conversation. The
Yeah,
nation's
you
now
are.
having a conversation about guns
The media-
after the inept
The Senate
Senate voted 4 times to do what? Nothing. To do exactly what the NRA told them to do.
It's called preserving the Second Amendment.
The
please.
NRA.
You have Democrats, Jeff.
The NRA has one policy. It's a policy of no, 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 no.
Pretty
And that
good
makes
policy.
it literally the most negative force in American politics.
Jeff, we had a Democrat member of Congress last week complain that due process was getting in the way and screwing up gun reform. Due process. A Democrat saying that he wants to get rid of due process so that he can get rid of
It
guns.
sounds like he's been listening to Donald Trump too much, because Donald Trump wants to be running for king and dictator.
No, that's
is the way
ridiculous. Where do you-
absolutely, he's going to
he-
build a wall and make Mexico
He
pay
is
for
the
it.
one. He
All
is
the
the one
stupid
that's
things
trying
that
to
he
call
says.
for constitutional judges, and Hillary Clinton even has been critical of Barack Obama's what she called maybe some overreach in government.
Thanks to
All right,
John
real
Lewis for
quickly-
making good trouble and
Yes,
Let me
necessary
move on
trouble
to
in
two
the House.
topics
Absolutely.
rather quickly.
Thank you.
By the way, in the Senate, there were debates, there were votes, 4 bills, 2 on one side, 2 on the other, and they all failed.
Preceded by a 15-hour filibuster by Democrats.
And
That's the
all-
only way that you got to that point.
He's the due
absolutely,
process
all of
guy,
these
that
things-
guy.
Yeah, all of these things are on the way to getting something done to control guns and violence in this country.
In the meantime, the law was restored. The U.S. Supreme Court, 8 of them now, not 9,
Yes.
by a 4-4 vote, let stand a lower court order banning President Obama's illegal immigration reform plan, which gives citizenship to the children of illegals.
Yeah, I would disagree with you that it's a reform plan. It's actually an amnesty plan.
Did I say
and
reform?
You did, and
sorry.
it's an amnesty. And again, it was executive overreach by the executive authority. And I hope, regardless
According
of
to
who's president,
that court.
you won't like this if Donald Trump's president. You'll be
I
saying the
won't.
same thing. You
I
don't want
won't like it.
executive overreach by a president.
And I won't like his court either.
That's fine, but you're missing the point. You've
Oh, no,
got
no, no.
a
I'm not missing the
legislative
point.
branch needs to make the laws, not a president or a king, as you
Well,
point out.
26
as you
states.
just pointed out, the legislative branch has done nothing for 6, 7 years.
That's the way our republic works. That is the will of the people. If nothing is, sometimes the best decision is doing nothing.
No, that's not ever
26
the best
states
decision.
opposed Obama on this matter, including Georgia. And
And
so-
kudos to our Attorney General Sam Olens
That's
for
right.
upholding the separation of powers, which is in our Constitution,
And
by
real
the
quickly,
way.
in another decision, to
Hey.
my absolute astonishment, the Supreme Court upheld racial discrimination in higher education, specifically at the University of Texas. An outrageous decision.
That was
We're
not-
past the days
it
of
was
discrimination.
Well, you should-
It's
should
based
let-
on
you should-
color.
you
You
should-
were against that at one point.
You should allow a oh, I think that the litigant in the case was not in the top 10% of her class, and that's why she couldn't get in the
No,
University of Texas.
no, that's not true. It was because she was, it was because she was white.
Because
No, she was
was-
white, and
Well,
she didn't get in the top 10%
you know,
of her
you
class.
Test scores were double. Some
You
of those
think
kids
it's
were
funny?
10,
You
top
guys used to be
10%.
against
No,
color
look,
as a
that's the
criteria.
standard for admission at the University of Texas. She didn't meet the standard, and so she claimed race.
We got to get
Come
out.
on.
We
No,
got to get out.
Wrong again,
Absolutely.
Jeff.
We got to get out. But that student, that female student, I'll bet you money her test scores were a whole lot higher than some of the children,
Now you
the kids
sound like Donald
from
Trump. I
top
bet you
10%
don't even know.
of their
You don't
class at
even know.
subpar
You're
high
just
schools.
making stuff up.
But that's just the
Stop
way it
it.
is. Racial discrimination, again, remains the law of the land.
Well, it was for a long, long time, the law of the land.
When we come back, we'll turn to local news, specifically Cobb County, and ethical problems in the city of Atlanta. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
And remember to check us out on Facebook. And of course, there's the Georgia Gang YouTube channel, where our broadcasts are available for you to check out if you missed it. In Cobb County this week, where everything is under the sort of the umbrella of the coming runoff between Commission Chairman Tim Lee and Mike Joyce, this week Tim Lee took the offensive, announced a couple of tax cuts, property tax cuts, which seemed to come out of nowhere to me, but I guess they're valid.
Well,
so he's a tax cutter. That's good, right? And then all of a sudden,
the millage rate has been going up. That's why he's done it.
Right. Well, that's right.
The
property values.
Have come
that's
up.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, a Republican, Rusty Paul, the mayor of Sandy Springs, says he's infuriated at Cobb County, goes nuts, attacks Tim Lee. What is Rusty thinking?
Well, the connection there.
Republican.
Well, the connection there is not what he's talking about on taxes. He's talking about traffic, which is spilling over from Cobb County over into Fulton County into Sandy Springs. And I think Rusty Paul, the mayor, ought to. It's too bad the Academy Awards are over with, because he's known about the traffic problem. We've been talking about it here for 2 years.
They were identifying specific routes
for the Braves.
For the first time. For the Braves.
Not for the first time.
And to route traffic
not for the
through
first
Sandy
time.
Springs.
In fact, on the tour, Alexis, we were given some of those routes over a year ago. They were talking North Side Drive. I remember
I'm gonna tell you
and me and Alexis being there.
We talked about shortcuts.
Rusty Paul has known about this, Jeff, and he was acting horrified all of a sudden.
Yeah, but I'll bet you his constituents didn't know about it, and I bet they were a little upset to find out that they were going to be impacted by the Braves Stadium and the Braves traffic.
I live over there, and I didn't need anybody to tell me that I was going to be impacted by traffic.
Well,
let me tell you that.
If they continue as they were, there may not be a traffic problem at all.
And Tim Lee got another break this week, and I thought it was kind of funny. Mike Joyce was profiled quite well, by the way, in the AJC, and they asked him what he thought about Cobb County government. He said, "I think it's great. They're doing a great job. Very dedicated employees." So his race is based only on the lack of transparency in the Braves deal.
In the leadership of Tim Lee, because I think anybody can say, I think it's a fairly well-run government, but Tim Lee has got, as you point out, a transparency problem. And one last footnote to the whole Rusty Paul, mayor of Sandy Springs thing. Did it bother any of you that when Rusty Paul was talking traffic over the last year, he wasn't negotiating with the State Department of Transportation, which you should be doing. He was negotiating with the private entity, the Atlanta Braves, asking them about how much money should we pay for this and that, and about studies. I'm against, I'll help some of my friends on the left here. I'm against that type of crony capitalism. He ought to be dealing with the proper state agencies when it comes to traffic.
All right, let's turn the page across the river to the city of Atlanta, where, to my amazement, the state has approved the takeover of the Bobby Jones Golf Course and Atlanta Memorial Park in a swap for land downtown by the Capitol, really without much outcry. I'm very surprised. I thought that was going to be a huge local controversy.
That was a good deal.
You had that. It is a good deal. You had this one parking structure that was supposed to have been part of the disposition of that property, the sale of that property to a private developer. And Mayor Reed, to his credit, has done an awful lot of these, whether it's the Civic Center or Underground Atlanta or Ponce City Market. In any event, that was supposed to be part of the deal, and you needed to find some way. It found out it was owned by the state. You needed to find some land swap, right? Because we've got our gratuities clause in Georgia. You needed to have a land swap between the city and the state, and that was it.
I actually agree. We talk about good deals. I actually agree with that, and everybody ought to be commended. And it also, the city of Atlanta brought on the family of the late Bobby Jones, and there's a preservation aspect to that too.
Right. Well, and I also think it's because golf is a particular sport for a particular group of people, primarily people who have some affluence, and so it's not really a huge people issue of impact.
All right, we've got to get out. When we come back, we're going to talk about a serious ethics case in the city of Atlanta, serious one, and also Governor Deal, $75 million for transit, which the state has not ventured into much before. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
In the city of Atlanta this week, longtime Councilman Michael Julian Bond went before the State Ethics Commission, and that body, newly reconstituted, newly re-energized, threw the book at the city councilman for an unreported, for huge amounts of unreported campaign funds, and also slapped him with a $58,000 fine. And folks, Michael Julian Bond, probably like the rest of us, said, I can't pay that.
Well, it was so
Big
confusing. Fine. It was a big fine. And you know, there was some information that came out of that all candidates ought to be looking at, and that is he ran up all these bills at the Commerce Club.
No, that was Bill Edwards.
That's right. You're right. You're right. But going to the let's go back to that ethics commission getting
premiums,
tough.
Car insurance.
And you're right. It was Bill Edwards. But what was interesting for people is that you've got to now can't use campaign funds for these private clubs. And that's where, to your point, the ethics panel is cracking down very hard.
Well,
that was a signal to everybody.
And he didn't report his campaign disclosures for how many years? 15, something like that?
A long time.
A long time.
Yeah, but still, it seems to me that is a very steep fine. I can't recall in the history of the Ethics Commission a fine of
but there were
58,000.
Oh, no, it is
300 instances.
I'm sorry.
It is the biggest.
Yeah. Or anything close to it. It just seems a little punitive.
It was the biggest, bigger than the old Charles Walker fine.
A little punitive.
Right. But just on that, sort of unrelated, a court ruled on the ethics issue that John Oxendine, former candidate for governor, must still face the charges.
Right.
They were trying to run out the clock because that race was almost 8 years ago.
Right.
In the city of Atlanta also, more Stiggs of Fox 5 had a fascinating story this week about a spike in the murder rates in Zone 3. That's southeast Atlanta. 9 murders in 11 days. And I don't mean to be critical. I know they're good homicide people working these things, but they say things like, I'm not surprised. They say things like, well, school's out. Well, but that's not the answer to 9 murders in 11 days.
No, and you've heard me say this before, and you've heard police experts of all fields say this, more aggressive policing is the answer.
I don't know if it's more aggressive policing. It's something that needs to be done to prevent the violence. There needs to be something done early on in the children's lives to have conflict resolution.
New York City in the 70s was terrible. The murder rates were out of control, and you had aggressive policing. You had the broken window theory that a lot of us adhere to. If there's a broken window in an area of downtown, fix the window and make the quality of life better, and start arresting some of these, the lower crimes, because the word gets out.
They lead to the bigger crimes. I'm not sure where we ought to go here. You were on vacation, so was the I-Team's Dale Russell. And he came back with a great story. You remember the story about the 2 fire people, a captain in the DeKalb Fire Department was stopped on a traffic violation by a Stone Mountain policeman. He called a buddy in the fire department. She came out. She alleged that the cop cursed her. They both got fired. They both admitted the cop didn't curse them. But he's been reinstated to his job, Captain Terrell Davis. That's a pretty sweet system over there. Governor Deal this week announced $75 million in transit grants. Now, let's not confuse that with trains or rail. But he was talking about buses, Greta, Cobb, Gwinnett, and Marta. And that's a big step. And in Atlanta.
But it's a little step.
It's a little step because there's no, Jeff, there's no connectivity here.
Right.
Well, there's no connectivity,
That's
but
the
it was
problem.
also part of a deal for about $1 billion plus in roads and improvements, which we needed. But transit got the short end of the stick there with $75 million. It sounds like a lot of money when you look at the overall transportation package that the governor, to his credit, was able to pass in the legislature. We need to do more. It's a start,
but it's piecemeal and no connectivity.
It's a start, but we need to do more.
Well, but I think it's a start toward connectivity. I mean, you really can't do it without the state. But going back to Governor Roy Barnes, when he formed GRETA, the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, I always thought the idea was to eventually have that agency subsume MARTA, take over the county
It
buses.
was. It was.
And have a regional system.
But it didn't
right.
work because who got all of the intricate funding mechanisms that are allowed now by the feds? And that's another acronym, CERTA, the State Road and Toll Authority. That's become the lead horse now. And you see the money going through there because they can do the creative financing that Greta and others can't do.
You're
And
right
the
about
other thing
this.
is that Roy Barnes didn't get reelected, and what's the guy, the fishing guy?
Sonny
Perdue.
Sonny Perdue didn't care about it. He didn't care about transportation
mentioned
at
it.
all.
Well,
Never mentioned
we are moving in the right
The
direction.
fishing guy.
I think that,
And with the Atlanta bond referendum.
And
also.
let's note, we're going to get into this a lot more. Let's just note that the Atlanta City Council Monday approved $2.5 billion,
Yes.
which would be put on the ballot in November for voters to approve, and that would lead to Jeff's
trans-
heart warms, light rail to the beltway, Beltline, and some other things. And we'll get to that project list as we go on. But now we're out for a moment. We'll come back with winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And we're back with winners and losers, and I will begin with Jeffrey.
Thank you so much, Dick. Well, my first winner is going to be Keisha Lance Bottoms. A lot of people were unaware that she did it mostly quietly, but she's actually been working to expand the city's boundaries over on the south side with about 1,000 new residents. Loch Lomond and some other communities over there are now part of the city of Atlanta, including that bustling business district along Cascade Road. Hats off to Keisha Lance Bottoms. She's done a great job there. Michael Thurman has been appointed to the Democratic National Committee Platform Committee. He's going to be holding a meeting this Wednesday at 6 p.m. at the Maloof Center to sort of a listening session to hash out some of those platform positions. Hats off to him for that DNC acknowledgement. Loser, House Speaker Paul Ryan. I mean, he's been courageous. He's been a great leader for Republicans, but he looked really, really weak as John Lewis and his colleagues took over the
like
House
an
this
adult
past
in the
week.
room to me.
And the U.S. Senate, 4 votes. How many? 5? 4, 5 votes trying to keep guns out of the hands of terrorists, and they can't even do that. They are bought and paid for by the NRA.
Alexis.
Okay, I'm going to first salute William Sonny Walker, who passed. He was a longtime civic and business leader here in Atlanta, and he will be missed. Also, I'm going to make John Lewis my winner of the week. He's my hero as he continues to stand up for
Or
human
sit down.
rights. Or sit down, as the case may be. Whatever is needed, he'll do it. And then Hank Aaron endorsed Ted Jackson for sheriff in Fulton County, which is another runoff race between him and Richard Langford, who's a former sheriff. So that's going to be an interesting race to
I didn't know
watch.
that. Well, all right. Ted Jackson, the former FBI special agent in charge.
That's right.
Phil, what do you have?
I've got a couple winners. I think you may have seen the news recently where the Shepherd Center got a nice grant from the Marcus Foundation. So you got Bernie and Billy Marcus giving $3.8 million to expand their veterans care there. They'll be able to double that program, and it's known throughout the nation. And another winner, Manuel's Tavern, that great watering hole. Many Democrats and liberals, of course, have gone there over the years. Of course, not you, Jeff, but anyhow, that's going to be reopening. This iconic landmark's going to be reopening next month, early August. I should say early August.
Yeah.
And that'll be great. And my loser, Dick, is Barack Obama. You know, he helped get Britain out of the European Union.
He
Did you
did.
know that?
He did.
He just
By
took these
supporting
shots.
David
He
Cameron.
should have kept out of that one if he was smart. He took shots
He
at Britain.
influenced a lot of British votes, I'm told,
He
by the
offended
exit
them.
polls.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Well, I will make as my winner, this one will shock you, the Atlanta Braves.
What?
They won
6 in a row.
Yeah, six in a row, six
right.
out of 7 going into Friday. And a few weeks ago, I sort of teased how bad they were by saying 2 words, Bud Norris. Well, all of a sudden, Bud Norris gives us 4 quality starts and is now trade bait. Other teams want him. Oh my gosh. This Braves thing is ridiculous. The stadium's good. And we've been looking at the new Falcon Stadium, getting some peeks at that. And I just hope that's open for business for the 2017 season. Doesn't that look like a bit of
like it
a
still has a way to
hurry
go.
up to you guys?
Looks like it has a way to go.
The
But they're
Falcon
going to get it
Stadium.
done.
Mercedes-
Oh,
Mercedes-Benz
goodness,
Stadium.
no.
No,
The progress on that has been amazing.
Yeah, I think it's on time.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
on time.
It's over budget. It's going up.
Well, yeah,
About
but it's on
$200 million,
time.
yeah.
Oh, it's on time. All right. And that's all we've got here, I think. And we'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.